note that in the handout that you have with you, there's a wonderful publication called The Teacher Researcher. And I'd like to reference on page 13, in particular, the words that our president of the Algeria University, Dr. Alameen, has suggested that in creating the outstanding school, he gives us 4 key elements. He says, the 4 key things that contribute to the creation of the outstanding school are a focus on teacher professional learning. The second thing is teachers working together on improving their practice. The third thing, a focus on instruction. And the fourth thing, ongoing feedback to teachers on their teaching performance. So if you unpack those 4 criteria that's been listed that helps us to create the outstanding school, you will see that it focuses directly upon the role of the classroom teacher. It is incumbent upon each professional in every school all around the world to be the best they can, to seek support and help to move forward, to improve their practice. This implication is for school leaders, classroom practitioners, support staff, parents, for everybody. Because creating the outstanding school is not the sole domain of one person or a leadership team. It is the collective responsibility of all of us. Each of us has a role to play. We must know how well we're going. We must work as a team to look at our performances and see where we can move forward. We're not a 9 to 3 profession. We are about improving the learning outcomes for each student that comes through our door. But it's also about improving each teacher's performance, each assistant teacher's performance, each security, each housekeeping. Every single person needs to move forward to help us to create the outstanding school. In order for us to move forward, to address those 4 key elements, which is primarily about teaching practice, we need to know what it looks like. We need to know where we can move forward. It's a real conundrum. We get caught up in the business of day-to-day life and we think we're doing some great jobs. And we're doing really well inside the classrooms, and the kids are happy, they're compliant. You hand out a few worksheets and bingo, you think you're on top of the world, things are going nicely. But then we need to look at the productivity of the learning itself. And how do we gauge that? How do we work through that? So over the next little while, this morning, I want to talk about getting information circulated through our school about the performance of people. Just like the, Ivan Lendl, Pete Sampras, the big tennis players, they all had people helping them, even though they're at the top of the tree of their chosen sport. We need to have people giving us and helping us and critiquing what we do in order for us to move forward. It's not an isolated activity. So I'm just going to quickly talk about what data-driven decision-making is all about. I'm going to talk about why it's important very quickly, and then I'm going to give some drivers around that to help us unpack what today will be all about. Very simply, if you're doing a great job, somebody knows that. They can see that. Because every moment of every day we are collecting information from you. Just like when you go into the supermarket, you're making judgments about how the products are lined up on the shelf. You know, and you're saying, well, I don't think that product is in the right place because I can't find the Chinese fire spice to go with my curry or such. And I think it should be in the condiments area or such. You are making judgments about things based upon your experience, based upon what you know and what you do. So it's not surprising that we have lots of data, but we're not really sure about how we use it or how we put it together. Really, at the end of the day, the decision-making process is about how you collect it and what you collect, how you analyse it, and how you then interpret and make some plans or actions to move forward. At the end of the day, anything that helps you improve your practice, should be looked at favourably. If it doesn't help you to reflect on your practice, the collection of that data may not be as useful or as it should be, or even you could say is wasting your precious time. It has to impact upon the decisions you take inside the classroom. So data-driven decision-making, it's not a single moment. It is a continuum. It's an ongoing process, something that you have to reflect on a regular basis. The reason why we need to look at improving the data collection process in our schools so that we can reflect upon the performance and look at areas to improve is that our world is moving rapidly, and we know that. We talk about the 21st century learning framework. We talk about the rapid changes in technological gadgets and such inside classrooms. We have a variety of gizmos that we use. We Skype people in classrooms all around the world. We connect in all sorts of things. And this whole rapid globalisation means that we really have to think about how we prepare our students. And how we prepare the students guides us in what we do on a day-to-day basis. And then we need to look at what we do and how we do it, and to make sure that we attend to being the best that we can be. We can't sit still. If we don't do anything different today, and we do the same thing tomorrow, and we think we're doing a pretty good job, eventually we're actually going backwards. The world is rapidly moving, and we need to continue to rapidly move with it. And I think that in terms of improving the quality of learning in our schools, having the systematic approach to the information that's all around us will help us tremendously. So quickly, as we move through the day, through the workshops, through the conversations you're going to be having in the corridors, I'm hoping that you'll see these key elements emerging in our conversations, and your contribution to these key elements. So if we're going to be effective as a school, if we're going to create this outstanding school, right, we have to build the capacity of each of us. We have to work through areas in our school that we need to improve upon, and we need to look at what we're doing. Am I doing the best I can? These 6 key components are human elements. Right? We're talking about the attributes of each of us collectively coming together. We have, in all school systems all around the world, we have plenty of documentation that tells us this is what our strategic directions are about. This is what we're on about. And inevitably, we are talking about change mechanisms. Because change is about doing something a little bit different to what you did before. You change your practice. The golfer changes his hand grip, to try and slice the golf ball around the tree. Change is inherent in what we do. being upfront with that helps us to understand the complexities of schools. You know, we work, we come to school, and all of a sudden there's some differences in the place. It's really important that we have a common and united vision for managing and organising the change. At the end of the day, and I hope that you'll hear this, you know, throughout all the different mechanisms that you have, as I've said this morning, that the commitment has to come from inside. You know, if we're going to be successful and have a nice, outstanding school, it's not because we have a really good photocopying policy. It's not because, you know, we have a increased time in our timetable and our lesson structures have grown. It's because we, each individual in our school, has committed to the tasks in front of them. And securing staff commitment is a big process. If you are going to help us, whether you're in our school today or you go to a school in another country at another time, that moment that you're with them is about your contribution. The processes that you build, both for yourself and for others, is about helping the school move forward. At the end of the day, these key elements that you see in front of you are basically the glue that drives your thinking, our thinking, and the planning and the organisation that we put into schools all around the process. I want to draw your attention to the last one there. We have to, in education today, in schools around the globe, we have to think laterally. Every single person in the school institution has a leadership role of some description. It's not about waiting for someone to tell you to do something. It's about you taking responsibility. When you're walking down the corridors and you see a couple of children, you know, dropping papers, it may not be in your section, may not be in your grade. It's about you taking responsibility. It's your leadership that helps to build the mechanisms that we're trying to put together to develop this outstanding school. It's about each of us. These 6 areas are the top of the tree in terms of building, you know, the outstanding school. Plus, holding it up are some key drivers, and I want to unpack those key drivers very, very quickly. You can't get those 6 elements unless we have, I believe, these 5 drivers working simultaneously to help get where we're going. Too often we are looking at schools, we are looking at the way schools are operating, and we have a variety of performance things in places. But if we're going to collect data, if we're going to be serious about enacting upon the information that we receive, these drivers will help us put things into place. Schools need data-driven leaders to drive the agenda. No matter what organisation you're in, if someone is pushing the barrow, it's most likely we'll see some success. If no one's pushing the barrow, you know, nothing really succeeds. Now, we need data-driven leaders. They're the people. And it's not just about principals or leadership team. As I said, it's about each of us taking responsibility. We need to make sure that the practices in schools are actually built upon, you know, particular structures that engage and bring people together. We need to have people who help each other to understand and to use the data that's given and collected in the school. And that is a different mindset. That's about, as I said, taking responsibility, not waiting for the head of the department to say, well, this is the results and I'll tell you what's going to happen and how it's going to unfold. It's about each of us seeking and trying to contribute and to interrogate that information and bring forward the new ideas and innovation as a result. It's really important that we look at what's happening and we collect it, but the leaders, and that's not just the designated leaders, it's all of us working towards in helping to build the particular practices. A lot of countries around the world are focused on the big test, the PISA test. In Australia we have the big NAPLAN. There's lots of these national-based tests that sort of give you an indication of how well you're going. If we're going to be successful in creating the outstanding school and we're going to use data to help us drive our decision-making around it, we can't rely on a single process. It's not just simply having a spelling test on Thursday and expecting that to give us the information that we need. It's multiple sources that we need to have built in our day-to-day regime. And we also need to make sure that the data sources were going to inform us. If it's not going to give us the information we need to rearrange things and not do it. So it's very important that we have a variety of things informing us so that we can make the best decisions about our practice and about what we're going to be doing for the students down the track. The third area that we need to focus on, if we're going to make sure that those 6 elements are crisp and vibrant in our school, is that we need to have the data collection tools that are teacher-centred and in the hands of the teacher. Accessibility. We need to make sure that information that's going to help you as a teacher in the classroom to make a decision about a particular child's learning, you need that information there and then. The problem with most of the nationalised testing type stuff, is that it's tested one day and 3 months later you get the information back. Our children are with us every moment of every day. We need to maximise the time. So we need that information in our hands straight away. Because your decision-making isn't just about when you sit with your team and plan. Your decision-making is about when the PIP or MYP coordinator comes down and then we have a bit of a meeting. Your planning, your decision-making is happening every moment. Every moment inside that classroom, you are working and thinking and you're receiving. So we need to make sure that the analysis of information happens regularly and daily. And so we need to capture that data. And today's technology obviously gives us a helping hand. We have lots of mechanisms around to house that. But at the end of the day, we need to help each other so that we can understand how to use the data collection tools more effectively, particularly when you're new into a system. So many schools start the new year with new teachers and such, and we've got to help them through the induction program to understand how to use the school software packages, if that's the case. And then, of course, there's your own individual data that you set up yourself in your own assessment books and such. And ultimately, we connect that together with your teaching performance. It's not about the children per se. It's about the collective nature of it. So what do we have to do if we want those enablers, the elements to come into play? Simultaneously, we're working on making sure we've got leaders who are driving the agenda. We're making sure that we have multiple sources of data to look at it. We make sure the tools are in your hands, close. But also we need to provide greater training and help people understand how to use the data. It's not it's not a simple process of just looking at it and having all the answers. Working collectively together to analyse and actually understand the data, but we need to build depth within our teaching force to ensure that we can respond more appropriately to it. Everyone has a different opinion on how to move learning. If you talk to each other about how you teach reading, you'd have a variety of methods, and everyone has their favourite way of doing things. In order to respond appropriately to the information you're given, you need to be able to discern all sorts of things in order to make sure that you make the right decision for that particular child who may be struggling with the double constant blends or whatever be the case in your classroom. You can't be limited, but responding appropriately. The way we do that today, and the way that I propose we move forward, as I've done in many places, is not about singularity activities. The professional development arrangement, or as some people call it, professional learning experiences, it is about being involved with
very appropriate, Dr. J.
Hey, it's my wife. No, just kidding. That's good. Yeah. Yes, love. Happy anniversary. Yeah, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. The nature, of professional learning is really about being embedded in your day-to-day practice, right? So the whole notion that we're bringing today as a group with all these different activities is about improving your practice. You need to know what to improve. Once we know that, then we can provide the next level, which is the professional learning activities. And we're lucky in some regards, particularly at our school at Balmarafa, that we have time on Thursday afternoons, that we can really use more effectively in order to build our professional learning arrangement. We've talked about coaching and mentoring and providing feedback structures. That's all part of this whole professional learning initiatives around that. And the final area, or the final driver in getting this whole data decision-making process in place to make sure that those 6 elements are working for us, it's about improving your instruction. I once had a conversation with a teacher in Victoria, Australia, about their work, and she was adamant that she was a good teacher, that she was promulgating learning in the classroom, been doing it for 20 years, right? And doing the same style, the same process. In fact, she even was proudly announcing that the same unit of work that she did in her second year of teaching, about, it was a geography type thing, was still relevant today. I think the instruction process has to grow and move forward. You can't keep doing the same old thing. The reality is that today we don't stand in front of teachers and in front of students and deliver learning. We don't have children sitting around or watching one person on the board, and then the teacher asking a question and waiting to see if 30 hands go up or only 2 hands go up. Right? Today we differentiate. Today we target what children need. Today we use the information given to us to drive the learning and to improve our practice. If we don't do that, we stagnate and then we start to move backwards. We need to improve our instruction in order to meet the needs of our students. And we need to know why we're doing that. When people go into your classroom, they look at what you're doing, the question they normally ask is, why are you doing that maths strategy right now with that group of kids? As professionals, you need to be able to answer that very clearly, and the centrepiece of your explanation will be about the child. 25 kids in your class, every child's different. We don't teach the same thing to everyone at the same time. We need to use the data to inform our instruction to meet the individual needs of our kids. So for leaders in schools, I propose that there are 6 key critical ingredients that we do so that we can ensure that the 5 key drivers are in place to support the essential elements of building a data-driven school. The first of those is about developing desire. How often do we go into staff rooms? How often do we talk to our colleagues? And it's about, mechanisms in the school that we're not happy with. It's about the information that has been shared with us by each other, and we're not quite aligned with it. Right? We have to build collectively a desire to use the data, to develop the practices. We have to establish that vision collectively, and that's what fires us up. Now, at our particular school, at Dalmarra Private School, we have a very strong vision. The owners of our school are excellent in their thinking. They want, and as I know you could probably recite our vision statement off by heart, but they want our children, when they finish our school, to not just participate in society, and they want them to contribute. Right? They want our children to be principled, to contribute to a just and peaceful society. Now, we're using the IB framework, we are building the learning framework. You are building the learning framework. Now, if we want children to contribute, what are we doing in our lessons? How are we doing that? Let's get the desire around achieving that particular goal. If we don't have staff desire, you're not going to use any of those drivers. The data collection methods are going to be useless because people are not going to use them. You have to have the internal desire to do so. And that's where your commitment comes into play. The second key thing that keeps us together, I suppose, is the creating spaces for our conversations. If we're going to be true to taking the data and looking at it and analysing it, we need some space to do that. We need to have conversations. And I'm hoping that you will see, at Dalmarra in particular, that creating staff hubs is providing a space where you can sit down and have some conversations. It's not a place to be sitting there looking on your phone, finding out what's happening in the world, right, during a non-teaching moment. The staff hub is a space for you to talk to colleagues, to share the information, share your experiences. Creating spaces to help us with those drivers, to achieve those essential elements, is about planning instruction together. And it's not just about a Year 3 teacher talking to a Year 3 teacher. It could be the Year 3 teacher talking to the physics teacher in the high school. Talking about instruction, sharing it, and saying, well, this is what I found in my classroom. What do you think? Talking to each other about your practice and talking about your learning. And I suppose we need to create spaces, for people to have a conversation around the instruction. I used this particular graphic organiser in my class, and it was a miserable failure. And through that conversation, you will build your capacity as professionals to improve your instruction. Creating spaces for conversation. And it's about professional conversation. It's about the learning that's taking place in their school. So we're creating that space. The next area that I want to share in terms of putting these things together is building our own data decision-making cycle. They're key points that help us understand and develop in order to make it an effective process. I think all schools should have some mechanism that clearly demonstrates how they are using the information in their schools. And I think you'll find that in our place in particular, that we're building a very strong decision-making cycle around the information given. As you read through those key points, the last point in particular, because we need to be fairly brief in my presentation today, but the last one, the reflection on success. And that's the little success with the one little child who's struggling in your classroom, to the collective success of a department in implementing a particular program, and to the big success of the whole school in achieving our targets. Having this data-driven decision-making cycle, helps us, with our action research, and helps us with our improvement directions. And these have been the key elements of the processes I've used in schools all over the place. I know I've talked about this notion of distributive leadership. Everyone's a leader, we all contribute, but it's a vital cog in building an outstanding school, because it's the woven fabric that each of us bring to the table that makes our carpet wonderful. We all have to engage in it. Now, I know some people were asking about information, but these, for mine, there are three key players in helping understanding distributed leadership that are there. The next area of the six areas that are important is about feedback practices. Today, you'll hear throughout the presentations and such the notion on providing feedback and how we do that and how we go about it. We're not going to become an outstanding school. The school in Finland is not going to become outstanding. The school in Alberta, Canada, is not going to be outstanding unless they can collectively together know what an outstanding school looks like. And it's not just about the school, it's about your classroom practice. What does outstanding classroom practice look like? And then you think about that, and collectively we work on that, and then we compare to what we're currently doing. And if we're not doing the outstanding practice, well, then we have to work and move forward. The second thing about feedback and having the formative, because it's ongoing, it's not just about the end of the year appraisal process, it's about an ongoing mechanism. The important thing is that we have to also build capacity to know how to reduce the gap in our classrooms between the lowest and the highest, knowing what is going to work for each of those students accordingly. The feedback sessions that we provide, the feedback sessions that we provide are about data. It's not about the individual person per se, it's about the practice. And we'll build upon that. So I want you to be listening, throughout the presentations today, and I'm hoping you'll find this thread of feedback coming together. Finally, I suppose, if we're going to be successful, we're going to get the data, we're going to use it appropriately, we then need to understand where our limitations are. And the professional development process, as I've explained earlier, is an important component. Because once I know that I'm having some trouble with classroom management, once I know that my interpretation of the narrative and critiquing is not as good as it should be, that's what we work upon. It becomes a targeted approach. It doesn't say, okay, we're going to be looking at this and we're all doing the same thing. So we need to look at supporting staff and giving different opportunities depending on what their particular needs are. We know that effective schools, outstanding schools, we know that they create mechanisms for feedback, and that the coaching, mentoring and feedback arrangement is inherent in the daily practices of the school. And we know that if we're going to provide professional learning around teacher areas of need, we need to focus on the data. What's that telling us, and how do we move forward from there? So let me just quickly sum up where we're at today. As a beginning point on this long journey to improvement, the role of the leader in creating the data-driven school, and that is the role of each individual person, is a key step in making sure that we have our eye on the outstanding school process. It's not good enough just to be good. It's not good enough just to be rolling along in the acceptable range. If we are true to our vision statement, we need to move forward, and we need to focus on our own improvement practices. We need to improve student learning. We need to improve student attainment. And I think the way forward is making sure that we as a school effectively use the data-driven decision-making processes to help us inform our practice, to help us move forward. It is your school. You take ownership of that. You take responsibility. Whether you're here for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, it is your school. You need to take ownership of it, of what we do. So the challenge for us is to listen and adhere to the research that we have. More importantly, we create the research. We look at what's happening in our school, we look at the practice we're doing, and we improve it. But we use it and we improve it in a very systematic way that's going to make a difference to the students. We know that the classroom teacher is the person most able to make a difference to the student learning. We need to build a process around what happens inside those classrooms to help give feedback to teachers on their practice so that they can do a better job tomorrow than what they're doing today. We can't be passive about it. We can't be slow about it. The children in our school need us now, today. And as we move forward, we need to make sure that we're not just collecting data, because that doesn't necessarily make us an expert teacher. Just finally, one of my favourite quotes of all time, you need to be, as the learner profile says, you need to be risk takers. You are teachers, you are educators. Right? Stand tall and be proud, and go out into the rough waters and engage that accordingly. So with that, I do wish you all the best today. I do hope that you gain something. In your booklets, they're inside the bag, is a program. There are a couple of graphic organisers, although that's not true, there's one graphic organiser repeated 3 times, in your book. Take notes, record, have a think about it. Ask questions. You've got some expert people, more qualified than I, to share information with you. Interrogate and use as best you can. Today is what you make of it. And as we work collectively together to share the vision of creating the outstanding school, I'm sure that we'll all be very, very happy at the end of the day. So with that, thanks very much and enjoy the rest of the conference.